So for most RPG games, combat is the thing. For most RPG games, it is the game. It is the focus, the main thing. I am not rocking that boat. That is not my goal here. I am going to have other rules to cover other situations, social interaction situations, sneaking past people situations. I'm going to have more in-depth rules for those as well, bringing them up in rules complexity anyway, close to what combat is, but combat is still the bread and butter of the rules. This, by its design, by its nature, the focus of this game is still primarily you are a group of adventurers and you go into dungeons, fighting monsters, and finding stuff of value. That is a fun gameplay mechanic, a dynamic, and I'm not opposed to it. I am building in favor of that. However, I am making significant changes to combat from other rule sets. I'll go into each of them, well, maybe not each of them, but I will go into a number of them in depth in future videos. But for now, I just want to cover the broad strokes of what is different about combat and why it is different. Obviously, the biggest reason is always going to be verisimilitude. Verisimilitude is the primary driving force for this. But there will also be other reasons for why I make particular verisimilitude choices instead of others. And there's always going to be reasons why I didn't go further. So to start off with the first major dynamic shift, I've already hinted at, alluded to, somewhat talked about in my previous videos, one of the Kickstarter videos, is ranged combat versus melee combat. Ranged combat and melee combat, in actuality, if you were living in this fantasy world that your characters are supposedly living in, they will not feel the same. In melee combat, you have a weapon, sword, shield, two swords, whatever it is, and you have one or possibly more opponents surrounding you, and yourself, or possibly yourself and allies surrounding the enemies, and you are exchanging blows. You feint and look for openings in the guard, and you are testing your opponent's defenses and looking for weak spots, and you're doing all this while also dodging and ducking and moving out of the way of enemy attacks. Using a shield to block and deflect enemy attacks, all of that. Meanwhile, the ranged person is trying to stay away from that. They don't want to be dodging attacks and ducking attacks, and they want to be able to stop, breathe, and whether it's a crossbow or a thrown knife or a longbow or whatever it is, they want to be able to take aim, focus, and hit that target. These are two very different things. So the main difference between them is when in melee combat, you're making attacks, the opponent is actively trying to get out of the way. So both players, either the GM and the player, I suppose, are rolling dice. One is the I'm trying to hit you, and the other is I'm trying to get out of the way. There's an attack bonus, a defense bonus. Each player rolls a d20, adds their bonus, and the higher number is the victor. If you are the defender and you roll higher than the attack, you dodged. You got out of the way. If you're the attacker and you roll higher than the defender, you hit him. You managed to aim correctly and smack him. Because that is the way it works. Like in actual narrative, that's the way that's the actions you're trying to perform. And I'm using the verisimilitude to lend that to make the gameplay feel like that. Obviously, I did not come up with this scenario. There are other games that do this. I did not invent this by any means. But that's why I wanted to use it, is why I wanted to include it, is because it brings that verisimilitude. You're trying to dodge. It is shown by you trying to dodge, as opposed to having a static defense. Armor is not there to help you dodge. Armor does not give you a bonus to defense. Armor is there to absorb damage. Armor provides damage reduction. I didn't come up with this either, but it is the verisimilitude. It is the narrative that you are representing through play, so I am trying to represent it through play. It does end up with more math. I'm not going to deny it. It does involve more rolling. I'm not going to deny it. But that's why it's there. That is the important thing to me, is that verisimilitude, that it feels like what you're doing. 'Cause I hate in other RPGs when I have a static number on my sheet, and I mean, I don't hate. I mean, there are times when it is disappointing. I have a static number on my sheet, and I'm like, GM, I'm trying to get out of the way of this. What can I do? And the GM's like, nothing. The game has taken the fact that you are trying to get away from this into the account when it created the concept of the the armor class, or the target number that you have, whatever that target number happens to be. The game understands you're trying to get out of the way, and that's just built into that target number. If you weren't trying to get away, your target number would actually be lower than is written on your sheet. Because why wouldn't you be trying to get away? But I prefer the verisimilitude of having to roll the die. Meanwhile, over in ranged combat land, yes, there are videos of people slicing arrows out of the air with swords and catching arrows. I mean, these things are possible. You will notice, watching any of those videos, however, that every single one of those person knows that the arrow is being shot at them, knows the weapon is being thrown at them. They are standing in one place, waiting for it. They are looking at the shooter. They are watching that shooter. And they know what is going to happen, so they know they're going to reach out and catch it, or they're going to... That's not a battle. That's a trick. In an actual battle, the guy shooting isn't going to make eye contact with the guy he's trying to shoot. To be like, are you ready? Are you ready, man? Let's... Okay, I'm going to shoot now. That is not the way this works. Hopefully, the guy's friends, the shooter's friends, are distracting him in some way. Maybe the guy doesn't even know the shooter's there. The shooter would love that. But the point is, in these fights, the shooter, or not the shooter, the defender, the guy getting shot, isn't actually able to do much to get out of the way. He's not dodging. You can't really dodge an arrow or a thrown knife. I mean, if the knife is thrown from, freaking 50 yards away, yes, you could probably dodge the thrown knife. Knives aren't moving that fast. You can be like, oh, okay, you've got 2 to 3 seconds of watching it. The guy's 10 feet away when he throws the knife. The knife is in you before you have registered that it's being thrown. If you didn't know it was coming, if you weren't prepared for it. Hence, the guys can catch the knife. There are plenty of videos out there of people catching knives. Go check out the Danger Committee for a group of guys who do that regularly. They regularly catch knives. I do apologize for the weird edit again. I don't know what happened to my equipment. It just stopped functioning. And once again, not good at this. So I could have just re-recorded the whole first part and been like, hey guys, guess what? It's nothing went wrong, but things went wrong. So, Danger Committee, fantastic group, catches knives. But in a real battle situation, that's just not the way it's going to go. Not without special training to be able to react to things like that in those type of speeds. Maybe high level, high-powered characters can, in fact, do exactly that. I'm not going to deny that that is possible. But for baseline, for normal characters, no. That would be a special ability. So, for normal archery, the way it works is you roll a d20 against a static target number. That static target number represents hitting a target. That's it. Because if you aim there and you hit there, you have now hit your enemy. And that is what you need to do in ranged combat. Okay, I'm clearly going to have to end this here. Something is going on. That is the basics, but my house is becoming a mess, and I need to go deal with that. So yeah, we'll talk more about combat in the next design video.